why didn't you stop and say, Mr. President, this is wrong. I cannot discuss this with you?
It's a great question. Maybe if I were stronger, I would have. I was so stunned by the conversation that I just took it in. And the only thing I could think to say, because I was playing in my mind, because I could remember every word he said, I was playing in my mind, what should my response be? And that's why I very carefully chose the words. And look, I've seen the tweet about tapes. Lordy, I hope there are tapes.
He says he hopes there are tapes, Chris. I mean, it could, clear up a lot of things if there are.
Absolutely. Incidentally, I think that's a perfect example of why James Comey was such an effective witness today, because two aspects of that. There were times when he said, I could have been stronger, I could have stood up and done something, and maybe I didn't. He wasn't always painting himself as the hero. Sometimes he was saying, I may have taken the easy way out. The other thing is there were a bunch of times when the Democrats basically were setting him up and wanted him to take a shot at Donald Trump, and he refrained from doing that, saying, I'm not sure I'd go to that conclusion. I thought it was very restrained, quite self-deprecating, and all it did was increase his credibility, because he wasn't painting himself like he was the guy in the white hat and Donald Trump was the guy in the black hat. But boy, it does certainly raise a question. We're never going to know what happened in that meeting unless the president does have a tape, because it will be a he said. We've got Comey's contemporaneous notes, but those are only as good as what he decided that he was going to write down. We don't know whether the president has a tape or doesn't have a tape, but we do have one piece of evidence, and I thought that Comey clearly was putting out there, basically saying, hey, ask these other guys. He's sitting in a room in the Oval Office, the president and Comey, along with, we're told, the Attorney General, the Vice President, the Chief of Staff, Jared Kushner, and the president asked them all to leave, that he wants to be just with Comey. The Attorney General tries to hang around, and he says, no, I want you to leave. Kushner, the president's son-in-law, is hanging around. No, I want you to leave. And it does raise the question, the direct question that James Comey asked before the hearing today, before the committee today, why did he ask everybody to leave the room and just want to be alone with James Comey if it was simply an innocent conversation?
Donald Trump, according to the testimony that Comey will give tomorrow, as released in a prepared statement today, Donald Trump tells Comey, let it go on the Flynn investigation. Just legally speaking, where are we there?
Legally speaking, we are wherever the committee wants us to be. Some could very well argue that as the president attempting to interfere with a criminal investigation, because it was followed up by firing the person who didn't comply with it.
How could you argue otherwise?
Well, we'll probably hear that argument tomorrow, because the investigation, in fact, was not stopped. They defied the president, and it didn't affect their investigation, and it continued going on. A couple of very interesting things. A lot of our colleagues have criticized Jim Comey for not reporting his suspicions about the president. We now know that he did. He's going to tell us tomorrow that he did. A lot of our colleagues have said, well, the president wanted to shut down the whole Russia thing. He didn't. He was concerned with exonerating one person, which was just General Flynn, and he made these requests 3 times.
And he wanted it stated publicly that he was not under investigation at the time, which the director said he was not.
Which at the time was true, because the investigation was a counterintelligence investigation to see who had prepared that horrific dossier about him, which he emphatically denied about.
And it now appears to be a counter-espionage investigation.
Yes.
This is a counter-espionage investigation.
Yes. So, we don't know where this is going to go. It's huge. It's all in Bob Mueller's court. We also know that Bob Mueller approved the statement that Jim Comey released earlier today, that he will read under oath tomorrow. Jim Comey is Bob Mueller's star witness. No prosecutor wants their star witness blabbing under oath to a tribunal in which the prosecutor is not there unless the prosecutor has approved what he's going to say.
Maybe the most significant matter on Capitol Hill since Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill?
Easily.
If not going back to Watergate.
If not going back to Watergate.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mark Kasowitz, President Trump's personal lawyer. Contrary to numerous false press accounts leading up to today's hearing, Mr. Comey has now finally confirmed publicly what he repeatedly told President Trump privately. That is, that the president was not under investigation as part of any probe into Russian interference. The president, Mr. Comey also admitted that there is no evidence that a single vote changed as a result of any Russian interference. Mr. Comey's testimony also makes clear that the president never sought to impede the investigation into attempted Russian interference in the 2016 election. And in fact, according to Mr. Comey, the president told Mr. Comey, quote, "It would be good to find out," close quote, in that investigation if there was, quote, "some satellite associates of his who did something wrong," close quote. And he, President Trump, did not exclude anyone from that statement. Consistent with that statement, the president never, in form or substance, directed or suggested that Mr. Comey stop investigating anyone, including the president never suggested that Mr. Comey, quote, "let Flynn go," close quote. As the president publicly stated the next day, he did say to Mr. Comey, quote, "General Flynn is a good guy. He has been through a lot," close quote. And also, quote, "asked how General Flynn is doing," close quote. Admiral Rogers testified today that the president never, quote, "directed him to do anything illegal, immoral, unethical, or inappropriate," close quote, and never, quote, "pressured him to do so," close quote. Director Coates said the same thing. The president likewise never pressured Mr. Comey. The president also never told Mr. Comey, quote, "I need loyalty. I expect loyalty," close quote. He never said it in form, and he never said it in substance. Of course, the office of the president is entitled to expect loyalty from those who are serving the administration. And from before this president took office to this day, it is overwhelmingly clear that there have been and continue to be those in government who are actively attempting to undermine this administration with selective and illegal leaks of classified information and privileged communications. Mr. Comey has now admitted that he is one of these leakers. Today, Mr. Comey admitted that he unilaterally and surreptitiously made unauthorized disclosures to the press of privileged communications with the president. The leaks of this privileged information began no later than March 2017, when friends of Mr. Comey have stated that he disclosed to them the conversations that he had with the president during their January 27th, 2017 dinner and February 14th, 2017 White House meeting. Today, Mr. Comey admitted that he leaked to friends of his purported memos of those privileged communications, one of which he testified was classified. Mr. Comey also testified that immediately after he was terminated, he authorized his friends to leak the contents of those memos to the press in order to, in Mr. Comey's words, quote, "prompt the appointment of a special counsel," close quote. Although Mr. Comey testified that he only leaked the memos in response to a tweet, the public record reveals that the New York Times was quoting from those memos the day before the referenced tweet, which belies Mr. Comey's excuse for this unauthorized disclosure of privileged information and appears to be entirely retaliatory. We will leave it to the appropriate authorities to determine whether these leaks should be investigated along with all the others that are being investigated. In sum, it is now established that the president was not being investigated for colluding with or attempting to obstruct any investigation. As the committee pointed out today, these important facts for the country to know are virtually the only facts that have not been leaked during the course of these events. As he said yesterday, the president feels completely vindicated and is eager to continue moving forward with his agenda, with the business of this country, and with this public cloud removed. Thank you.
Mr. Kasowitz, why did Mueller interview the president? Why did the president record over Mr. Comey?